Police in Maine in the US are hunting a man they say is armed and dangerous after shootings in multiple locations, with fears at least 20 people have been killed and more than 50 more injured. Well,
Ashbey Beasley joins us now. She was attending a 4th of July parade with her son in Highland Park in Illinois last year when they had to start running for their lives after a gunman sprayed a high-powered rifle from a rooftop into a crowd of parade goers, killing 7 people. And Ashbey joins us now. Ashbey, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I imagine each time this happens, another mass shooting like we're seeing and hearing about today in Maine, it must bring back absolutely awful memories for you and your family.
It does. You go right back to every emotion that you had at that time, and between feeling that anxiety and that fear and that sadness, there's also a huge amount of anger and rage at the fact that this is happening again.
it must be you having been through something like that and the impact it had on your son, who was 7 at the time, which I'm sure you'll tell us a little bit about. It must be almost a sense of disbelief for you that it's happening again. That's certainly what we feel here in the UK, because, of course, our laws are very different and our experience of gun culture is very different. Is that where the rage comes from for you?
You know, for me personally, I became very active in trying to pass gun safety legislation after our mass shooting. And no, actually, I'm always waiting for it to happen again, because I know how easy it is for people to get guns in this country, and how they don't have to have a background check. In Maine, you don't have to have a background check. And there's lots of places in our country where you can just walk into a store and walk out with a gun. So I'm kind of always waiting for it to happen again, because I know that it probably will.
I mean, it absolutely, it's baffling, you know, in the Western world, that you don't need to have any background checks to go and pick up a gun, and a very lethal gun. Now, you are part of a campaign. You have been speaking to your local senator about banning these kind of assault rifles specifically. How is that going? Is it falling on deaf ears? Do you feel that you're making any progress at all?
I feel like American people are united on this. The majority of Americans want to see gun safety legislation. The majority of Americans support an assault weapon ban. That comes from Fox News polls. Where we struggle in this country is against the gun lobby and our lawmakers who are not listening to their constituents. So you have the Republican Party, who will not support gun safety legislation because they are being paid by the NRA, and it is very difficult to break through that.
So what has been the impact on you and your family? Tell us about that.
My son, he spent much of last year being very angry, 6 years old, and looking at me and saying, I didn't know I could just die like that. I don't think that there is a way to describe what it's like to see your child be so afraid their legs stop working and they fall to the ground and they just give up and beg not to die. And that plays over in my head over and over and over again. And I know for him, it manifested in a lot of anger. And, from an economic impact, it's our insurance reported that we spent over $25,000 on therapy for my 6-year-old son in the year after the shooting. And we are finally in a place, in a much better place. He has resources at school, and every day is, a new day, and we get further away from it. And I think that he will just continue to find ways to deal with, the anger and the fear. But I mean, it's a long road. And when I see footage of families running like I did tonight, I think about the road that they're about to go on, and the days after that shooting, and the playing over and over again in their heads of what they could do differently. And it's a long road. It's a long road to try to get back to some kind of normal.
Ashby, what would you say to some of those families this morning? If you could speak to them now, you know, what would you say to them who some of their families or friends have been caught up in some of this? We heard that, you know, that a bowling alley was targeted where there was also a children's party taking place. I mean, we hope the death toll from there is at the minimal, most possible it can be, but clearly there will be some victims there. What would you say to those families at this moment in time?
I think one of the most important things that parents can do is try to give their children a foundation of trust, because right now it's very scary for them. They're very confused. As soon as there is a resolution with the shooter, whether he's caught or whether he is killed, as soon as parents can tell their children that that person cannot hurt them anymore, is really critical to getting them into a place where they feel safe. And for adults and parents, I would just say, be gentle with yourself, be careful with yourself, lean on friends, lean on family, and take advantage of any resources that are out there, whether it's counseling, whether it's a way for you to take time off of work. If you have vacation time, take it, be with your family, and just don't push yourself. Don't try to be hard on yourself or expect too much out of yourself. Just give yourself a lot of grace, and hopefully their community will be able to provide them with resources to help them on their healing journey.
And in the meantime, of course, there is a gunman still on the loose, and we know that primary schools have had to be closed in the area and also surrounding districts. Other public schools are being shut. The horror of this is that we don't know the end point, even as horrific, of course, as the details we already know are. When you talked about your own horror, and when you talked about the situation that your son went through at the time at 6, you know, I could feel that horror. Have you ever been given the chance to relay that to the people you were talking about that aren't listening?
Yes, I actually work with Republicans and with Democrats, I feel, you know, like we have to depend on both parts of our government. We can't just, you know, only work with Democrats. We have to work across the aisle. And so I do try to, you know, work with them, meet with them. I've met with Speaker McCarthy's office, former Speaker McCarthy's office, and many Republicans in the Senate and Congress at the federal level. And so no, I've made it very clear, you know, this is something that can happen to anybody at any place. You can be in a movie theater, you can be in a grocery store, you could be at a parade, at a bowling alley, and this can happen to anyone, anywhere. Bullets don't know who voted for, and dead people don't vote. And so it is critical that our lawmakers get on board and pass gun safety legislation.
Yeah, Ashby, I was recently in the States, actually, in September, October, had a bit of a holiday over there, and I was gobsmacked by the culture of guns out there. You know, you walk into a restaurant or bar and sometimes you see that sign, don't you? You see the sign of a gun and a cross through it, the guns aren't allowed in this venue, that you would even have to say that. And then also, some of those T-shirt shops, the souvenir shops, are just quite something to behold. I can't believe that these are on T-shirts. And these are from pro-gun lobbies and communities. I mean, this one here...
This one makes the point that...
If guns kill people, I suppose that pencils misspell words, spoons make people fat, and cars drive drunk.
I suppose it's trying to make the point that the guns themselves aren't the problem. It's the people that use them. And that is an argument made by the gun lobby a lot, isn't it? What would you say to that?
You know, I hear from lawmakers on the other side who don't want to pass gun safety legislation, that it's a mental health issue and all these other things. And every single time I hear that, I say every other country in the world has mental health issues, have citizens who are depressed, who are going through breakups, domestic violence, all of these things. Every country in the world has these same problems, but they don't have the gun violence that we have because they don't have easy access to guns. And that is the difference between us and every other country. You can go into a store and buy a gun sometimes without a background check. Sometimes you can order one online and have it shipped to your house. And it's the easy access to guns that is killing us.
Well, we're sorry that you're having to talk on this subject again. We're sorry that the more families are going to be going through what you've been through and worse. And we wish you well with continuing your fight and also your recovery from the shock and the horror of it all.
Yeah, and, you know, and we're saying lots of strength and love to your young son as well. Ashbey, thank you very much for joining us this morning from Illinois.